What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony. We are officially in 2023, and as I do every year, it's time for me to share with you my 10 most anticipated movies of the coming year. Of course, I do want to say these movies are entirely going to be based on my opinion, so don't take this as these are the only 10 good movies coming out this year, but rather that these are the ones that get me the most hyped. So if your list is different, which I'm sure it is, definitely let me know what's on yours in the comments below. I would love to hear it. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started with number 10. And coming in at number 10 is a movie that I had some serious doubts about when I first heard they were making it, but after finding out who is making the movie and after seeing the trailer in theaters, I'm pretty sold. And that movie is the upcoming romantic comedy Barbie. That's right, I said it. Go ahead and flame me in the comments below. But before you do, I should let you know Barbie is being directed by Greta Gerwig, who, if you don't know that name, she is one of the more recent, really promising directors. She's directed Little Women most recently, as well as Lady Bird. The movie is also being written not only by Greta Gerwig, but additionally Noah Baumbach, who I know from writing and I believe directing a movie called Marriage Story, which is not a comedy in any way, but was an incredibly well-written movie. So if we're just looking at the talent behind the creation of this movie, it almost has to be good. Then of course you have Margot Robbie playing Barbie in the movie, and I mean, who doesn't love Margot Robbie? As well as Ryan Gosling playing Ken, which is ridiculous. But from what we know about the movie, it's supposed to be kind of a play on the concept of Barbie. I guess she gets kicked out of the Barbie world and has to come to the real world and make a life for herself there. So I'm very interested to see how they play on that and the absurdity of the character of Barbie and how she would fit into a modern society. I think it's going to be pretty interesting and hopefully very funny. So say what you will, but yes, Barbie is in my top 10 of 2023. All right, coming in at number 9 is a movie that I haven't seen a lot about, but the trailer totally sold me, and that is a movie called 65. 65 stars Adam Driver, who is a fantastic actor, and in it, all I know about the movie is he plays some sort of a futuristic pilot who crash lands on a fairly deserted planet and is trying to survive and find a way to get home. And while he's there, it's kind of revealed to us that he is on Earth 65 million years ago, when, of course, dinosaurs roamed the earth. So it has some interesting concepts, kind of from different movies, and although I'm not entirely sold on the creative team behind it, I do know that Sam Raimi is producing the movie, so that has me at least a little interested and hopeful that the quality will be what I want it to be. But other than that, just from watching the trailer, it looks like something that is going to be very interesting and action-packed and thrilling. And of course, if Adam Driver's on board, well, I have to watch it. So yeah, coming in at number 9, a movie called 65 that I don't think a lot of people have their eyes on, so maybe you should check it out. All right, coming in at number 8 is an installment in a saga that we have not seen in quite a few years, and that is a new Indiana Jones movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, we all know the last Indiana Jones that we got, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, was pretty much a flop and really fell apart, especially towards the end. But the prior 3 Indiana Jones movies are absolute classics, and with this new Indiana Jones, the director of that movie is going to be James Mangold, who is an incredible director. For those that don't know, James Mangold really kind of made his name in the industry by directing 3:10 to Yuma with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale, but he really blew up when he took over the Wolverine franchise by directing The Wolverine, as well as Logan, which is one of the greatest comic book movies ever. And I really feel like Indiana Jones, especially an older Indiana Jones, is something that fits right into his wheelhouse. So I'm very curious to see what they do with this. I have it kind of lower on my list because I am still a bit jaded from the last Indiana Jones movie that we got, but the talent behind this is fantastic. And of course, we all love Indiana Jones, so I'm very hopeful that this lives up to the memory of the original trilogy, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see. All right, coming in at number 7 is the Super Mario Brothers movie. Now, this is a movie that I am excited to see. I'm a little worried about it. Generally, of course, we know video game-based movies don't do that well. However, there have been a few that have been very successful and pretty good. For example, the Sonic movies that have come out more recently, I thought those were great. I loved the Pokemon movie, Detective Pikachu, and would love to see a sequel to that. So it's not impossible for a video game movie to be good. And really, more recently, especially with these kind of beloved franchises of Pokemon, Sonic, and now Super Mario, hopefully, I feel like video game movies have kind of found their niche. I will say there are a couple of concerns that I have with this movie. For one, the director, or directors, I should say, there are two of them. They don't have a great track record, especially in major cinematic releases. In fact, I think they've really only done smaller animated movies, mostly ones that were straight to video or straight to TV. So it is a bit odd that they're giving them something so monumental as a Super Mario movie. Also, of course, the voice cast is a bit hit and miss, mostly hits, I think, but having Chris Pratt as Mario has always been strange to me, and even now hearing his voice in the trailers, it's fine, but the way I see it, we already have a voice of Mario, so why not just hire that guy? He already does it, and I'm sure he's probably much cheaper than Chris Pratt. So I'm a little cautiously optimistic about this movie. I do hope it's going to be good. It looks fun. I've seen the trailers at home as well as in theaters, and it looks incredible on the big screen, but I'm going to try not to get my hopes up too high because, of course, the creative team and some of the cast just not really feeling it. But either way, I will be there day one to check out the Super Mario Brothers movie. Speaking of movies that I'm a little cautiously optimistic about, coming in at number 6 is a movie that, oh boy, this one is a mess, but I have to see it at this point, and that is The Flash. So The Flash is a movie that has been in limbo for quite some time, and now that we know what's going on with the DC universe, basically that everything is going to be completely rebooted, I have no idea what's going to happen with this movie when it comes out. The movie's being directed by Andy Muschietti. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, but from what I've heard, he has done a fantastic job with it. Of course, you have Ezra Miller starring as the Flash, and they have had a lot of problems lately, particularly with the law, and I'm not sure what DC is going to do as far as the advertising for this movie, if they're going to keep Ezra Miller in the spotlight for it, or if they're going to try to basically pretend that they don't exist. But I guess we'll call it morbidly curious about what is going to happen with this movie. I expect that it will be good based on all that I've heard about it, but I don't know. This just feels like it's going to be a mess. But of course, DC is in far too deep. They've invested so much money in this. They have to put it out. They have to try to make at least some of their money back. And then I guess we'll just pretend it never happened and move on with our new DC universe. But aside from all the behind the scenes stuff that's going on with this movie, I am really excited to see what they do with the multiverse and what they do with some of the actors and actresses that we're going to get in this movie. Of course, Michael Keaton is said to be returning as Batman, which is something that I never thought I would say, but I'm really excited to see what they do specifically with him. I believe we're also getting a cameo from Ben Affleck as our more recent Batman. So again, it's really interesting. There's a lot they can do with this story, but unfortunately, they just got kind of screwed with their lead actor going crazy and this movie getting pushed back to a point where the universe is about to end anyway. But hey, maybe it'll go out with a bang. All right, we're about to get into our top 5 of my most anticipated movies of 2023. If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid, drop a like on the video. And of course, if you want to see more ranking videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe. All right, coming in at number 5 is a bit of a different movie. It is a biopic by Christopher Nolan called Oppenheimer. For those that don't know, Oppenheimer is one of the people that is primarily responsible for the creation of the atomic bomb. And this movie is kind of following his story along that process. It's a bit of an insight into what was going on with him as a person as he is harnessing this power that could destroy the world. And really, what better director to take the lead in something like this than Christopher Nolan? I love Christopher Nolan. I think he is a tremendous director. I specifically get from him that he likes to push the envelope, that he likes to see how far he can take the medium, the storytelling art of cinematography. And with a movie like this, I feel like there's so much he can do. We've heard some rumblings that he is trying to recreate an atomic blast without, of course, actually using an atomic bomb. So I don't know what that means. I don't know. This man is completely insane, but you need someone like that to be able to create this story. And although I do have some trouble with some of his movies, I think that sometimes he can overextend and then he kind of gets lost in a place where his movie doesn't make the most sense. I hope that because this is a true story about a real person, he can kind of keep it within those guidelines and we'll end up with something really beautiful. Of course, you also have Cillian Murphy in this movie who is playing Oppenheimer, and he looks fantastic in the trailers. I think Cillian Murphy is an amazing actor, and by his side in this movie is an incredible cast as well. Check it out. I've got the actors written down right here. You've got Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr., Matt Damon, Rami Malek, Florence Pugh, Kenneth Branagh, Josh Hartnett is in this movie. It is a ridiculous cast, and of course it is. Everybody wants to work with Christopher Nolan, so I'm sure he can just call up whoever he wants, and they're just going to agree to be in his movie. So I think Oppenheimer looks really interesting. I'm curious to see what they do with the visual elements of the movie, but really more curious about getting into the psyche of this guy that was burdened with something so incredible. There's a famous Oppenheimer quote, or rather it's him quoting a book, the Bhagavad Gita, and it was before setting off the atomic bomb for the first time. He said, "I am become death, destroyer of worlds." And people say things to sound dramatic. I don't think that's where he was when he said that. I think he said it because he meant it, that he had created something with the capability of destroying all human life on the planet. And to understand what was going through the mind of a person like that is going to be fascinating. All right, so that's my number 5. Coming in at number 4 is something a little more lighthearted, and that is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, what's interesting here is that neither of the previous Ant-Man movies have really been in my top 10 most anticipated movies of the years that they came out, but this movie, Quantumania, is supposed to be much bigger than the smaller story of Ant-Man that we've gotten before. This is supposed to be kind of the jumping off point for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for this multiverse saga that we're getting. And really, in this most recent phase of the Marvel movies and TV shows, I felt like we've been a little aimless, like we don't really know where we're going. But if this movie is what it claims to be, it should finally open our eyes to what's really going on in the Marvel Universe. Or rather, the Marvel universes. I am really curious though, because you have the same director from the first 2 Ant-Man movies, Peyton Reed, who is a really good director, but I haven't seen him do anything quite as big as this, even with the Ant-Man movies. So I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to manage and handle something of this magnitude that is not only just having implications in the Ant-Man universe, but in the entirety of everything Marvel's doing at this time. I feel like it's a really sensitive time for Marvel as a company, and a lot is riding on this movie. That being said, they have some incredible talent behind it, and the story does look very interesting, so I am curious to see what they're going to do with this. I can't wait to find out what's really going on with Kang the Conqueror, and to see how this is going to expand out to the rest of the heroes and villains in the Marvel Universe. So yeah, you better believe I'm going to be there day 1 to check out Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. All right, coming in at number 3, we're almost there. Number 3 is Dune Part 2. Now, to give you full disclosure here, I have not always been a massive Dune fan. I didn't read the books or watch the original movie, but after seeing this first Dune movie in this new series, it is incredible. I've been learning a bit more about the history of the book and how it's impacted other movies and really sci-fi as a genre in general. And if the movie that I saw with the first Dune, or the first of the new Dunes, is any indication, I think this sequel is going to be amazing. It's a bit odd that they didn't greenlight the sequel until after the first movie came out, which I know would be typical of most movies, but you would imagine with a movie like this, with a budget like this, with a creative team like this, and with a story like this, they would have already set us up with however many movies they need, whether it's a trilogy or whatever. But I guess they were kind of hedging their bets to make sure that the first one didn't bomb. Well, good news is it did not bomb. It did incredibly well. It practically swept the Oscars the year that it came out, winning more awards than any other movie that year. And I think this sequel is going to be amazing. I cannot wait to watch it in theaters on the biggest screen possible. This is one of those movies that if you are a fan of sci-fi or spectacle at all, you have to see this movie. All right, and then there were 2. Coming in at number 2 is a movie that surprise, surprise, was on my most anticipated movies list from last year, but it turns out it got pushed and pushed and pushed, and now, allegedly, it's coming out in 2023, and that is the sequel to the animated Spider-Man movie. This one is called Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. Now, the first animated Spider-Man movie, Into the Spiderverse, that we got a couple years ago really blew me away. I had pretty low expectations, I'd say moderate expectations about it, but man, it was amazing. The art style that they went with was so interesting. The story was... it just tugged at your heartstrings. The animation, not just the art, but the animation itself, the way they animated Spider-Man moving around was so thoughtful and fluid and really just pushed the limits of what is possible with 2D animation. And now that we're having all of these movies that are exploring the multiverse with Marvel, this movie really ties into everything that's been going on with the live action world. So I have some questions. I'm really curious to know, is this going to tie in to, say, Ant-Man Quantumania? Is there a possibility that we're going to see these characters bleed over into live action? Honestly, if you want my idea, if we're going to get some more Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which I think we should, let's get another trilogy with him, and we can wrap up that trilogy by introducing Miles Morales kind of as his replacement. I think that would be amazing if we could do something like that, or maybe you don't need a trilogy to do it, but that would be a cool way to take this animated character and bring them into live action in a way that we already know who they are, and we already know who the existing Peter Parker is, so that kind of blend makes perfect sense, especially now that we're exploring all this multiverse stuff. So I'm very excited to see what they do with Across the Spider-Verse. I think if it's anywhere near as good as the original, it is going to be one of the best movies of the year, and it opens up for so much more opportunity. Now, before we get into number one, I already know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one, but I want to be clear. These are my 10 most anticipated movies. What does that mean? That does not mean that these are the 10 movies that I think are going to be necessarily the best movies of the year or the ones that the most people are going to like. No, what these are is these are the 10 movies that whenever I see a trailer or read an article about them, it brings me joy and excitement. It hypes me up and it makes me interested in watching them. So, my number one, I don't necessarily think is going to be the best movie of the year. In fact, it may not be very good at all, but to me, I am hopeful that it is because it makes me so excited, and that is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. That's right, I said it. Go ahead, throw your slings and arrows, I know, it's fine. But this movie looks so good, and I'm going to say it. Chris Pine, one of the best Chris's. I know a lot of people put him at the bottom of their list of Hollywood Chris's, but I think he's actually more towards the top. Now, to be fair, we've gotten some Dungeons and Dragons movies before, and they haven't really been that great. But if you've seen the trailer for this movie, and look, we've all fallen victim to false claims in trailers. We've all seen a movie trailer that looks amazing, and then the movie ended up sucking. But if you've seen the trailer for this movie, it looks so awesome. It looks like so much fun. Honestly, it looks like the reason why you go to the theaters. And although the directors and writers behind the movie aren't necessarily the most successful that I've seen, I'm really kind of hoping that this lives up to my expectation for it. I am a massive Dungeons and Dragons fan. I've watched so many Dungeons and Dragons shows of just people sitting around rolling dice. I've played every opportunity that I've had, and I just love how it's influenced all of the fantasy genre. And of course, in the movie, there's so much talent there. Of course, you have Chris Pine, who is playing a bard, which is fantastic. I love a cocky Chris Pine. You also have Michelle Rodriguez, who I love as well. I believe she's playing a barbarian. There's Justice Smith, who was in the Detective Pikachu movie, who was great. And also Hugh Grant, which is wild that Hugh Grant is in a Dungeons and Dragons movie. But yeah, it has a great cast behind it, a healthy budget. It looks fun as far as the trailers are concerned. And I am super hyped to see this movie. But again, these are all just my opinions. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. What movies are you most hyped for in 2023? And of course, if you want to see more of my movie reviews, trailer reactions, ranking videos, if you want to see whether or not I am totally off on all these movies, make sure you subscribe. Otherwise, I'll catch you in the next one. All right, be good.